Episode number 306, Highlights from FILO 2021, Part 2. Let's do it.
This is the definitive podcast for helping you plan, create, and execute dynamic worship experiences at your church. Useful, practical content in the areas of production, worship, communications, first impressions, and more. This is Making Sunday Happen.
Hey guys, welcome to Making Sunday Happen. This is episode number 306 of our show. We're shooting this episode of the podcast from Chicago, from FILO 2021. We've heard some amazing speakers this week, including my friend Justin who was on the podcast last week. Also, Dr. Andrew Johnston. Also, we've heard from Carlos Whitaker and other great speakers, great breakouts here. This is a great conference for your church tech and production team, leaders, also worship leaders at your church, your creative team, all those type folks. This is a great conference for those people. So be sure to budget for it. Come next year and years to come. There's some great conferences out there like this one and SALT that are great for your church tech team. So be sure to check those out. This week on the show, we're going to be sharing more interviews that we had here at FILO. So stay with us for that. And we have some amazing interviews lined up in the next couple of weeks as well. Grant Norsworthy will be on the show next week. He's an artist and musician from New Zealand, so be sure to be here for that. But coming up on this episode of the show, more from FILO 2021, right after this.
Hello, I'm Alan Smith, and I want to extend an invitation to you to be part of our virtual conference experience, Design Revival. It is a 2-day design conference that will inspire and equip churches to use good design to better communicate the gospel to our churches and our communities. Our world has been in chaos for the last year, and people are hurting, and we believe that our communities need a heavy dose of kindness and gentleness and goodness and, well, the fruit of the Spirit. And we want to challenge churches to be bold in character. And so we believe that good design can make a catalyst for change. It can be a difference maker. It evokes action. And we want to challenge Christian designers to embark on this quest. And so this year's conference will challenge designers with a quest to unlock the character of your church and your community by leveling up for the sake of the gospel. We have some amazing speakers who will inspire you to use design in new and innovative ways, along with engaging workshops that will help you grow as a designer. We want to help your church reach your community with the gospel, and we want to help remove the distraction of bad design. And you can register today by going to 1230.media/design revival. Reserve your spot for this exciting virtual experience, Design Revival Conference, today.
Hey guys, I'm here with my good friend Dr. J. You are here live, so it's interesting. We're doing a lot of digital and we're doing a lot of live here at FILO this year. So we're in and out of Zooms and in and out of live environments, and so it's been a lot of fun. Is this your first FILO?
It is. Yeah, the first time I've been here.
Yeah, mine too. So we're freshmen together, I guess.
I'm happy to do it live rather than my first one be online. But
yeah, exactly. So you are doing a breakout, but you're also doing a keynote tonight in the last session. So we're making sure that people stick around and do not take the early flight out.
Excellent.
This is worthy of staying. We've anchored. We brought the big names at the end. See,
I'm afraid sometimes that's the pressure that gets put on that person. I've tried to kind of seal my ears and not hear that sort of stuff. But I do hope some people are still here.
Yeah, you're the big name, baby. You're it.
All right.
All right. So your keynote is about turning busy work into worthy work.
Yeah.
So give me a little snapshot of your session.
Well, I wonder if it was not really the best choice of a topic, because busy work is like universally debilitating and deplored. I haven't found anybody that doesn't sort of groan and roll their eyes when you talk about busy work. But I thought it was a good thing to talk about because I know we all face those things, and especially if you're in a role or a job where it's filled with a lot of routine things, a lot of potentially uninspiring tasks. It's really important to figure out how do you transform those from those sorts of mundane things that deplete you, wear you out, to something that you can give yourself to fully. And honestly, I think it's even hard to figure out what busy work is because people use it for so many things. Right. And here's the key. I think it's not so much about what you're doing as the reason you're doing it.
So purpose.
Because people use busy work to talk about any task that they feel like the return doesn't justify the investment.
Doing the laundry or...
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I'm going to teach you how to turn that into worthy work, because the idea is to create a situation where it feels like, you can give your best and be your best because what you're accomplishing is worthy of your best.
Yeah. So talk to me more about purpose, especially as it relates to me as a pastor, church tech, worship leader. What are some busier tasks, and how do I really wrestle with my purpose in those roles?
Yeah, well, maybe I should start out just by commenting on how fragile purpose is in the midst of things. You've got like three questions you're always dealing with. It's that what are we going to do, how are we going to do it, and why should we do it? And of those three, why is the shyest, and what and how always get their due, but why often gets left out because you get so busy with all the things on your to-do list, the things that are knocking on your door, the emergencies, that you can kind of end up attending to all that what and how, and why never gets into the conversation. So if that gets left out, you find yourself really busy but purposeless, and that's busy work. That's the recipe for that. And so the idea is how do you keep the work itself from eclipsing the worth? And it's really about turning your attention to that. Whether you're doing it yourself or trying to keep your people's attention, it's talking all about why, not always the what and how.
So does that mean that I should reprioritize my task list based on worth and purpose, and maybe delegate the admin or busier work? Or do I need to go, this might be busy work, but this is why I do it?
Yeah, at least the angle I take on it isn't so much in choosing to do the things that are not busy work. It's more like recognizing that every job has a bunch of busy work or potential busy work in it. And it's not about delegating that to somebody else, because frankly, if you delegate it to them,
they're going to wrestle with the same thing.
Yeah, they're going to have the same problem. So the goal is to look at this and figure out, how do I transform it? And that's really about looking at those items on your to-do list and kind of seeing past them to what the worthy purpose is behind them. Sometimes I think of that as separating what you're doing from what you're accomplishing. And that's tricky because, sometimes once you get this idea and you try to do that, you realize you're having trouble coming up with a good reason for this. But that's where your time's well spent, is to think more about that than just what you have to check off.
What about me as a leader? How do I lead others to realize what they're doing? Let's say a volunteer at a church. Mm-hmm. How do I make them realize that, hey, you're not just pushing lyrics as a button pusher. What you're doing has worth. You're an actual worship leader giving words to your congregation to sing to Jesus. That's what you're doing. Yeah. You're not just pushing a button. That's just one example. But how do I lead my volunteers, my team, to to structure it for them to realize that what they're doing is worthy? Yeah,
and in one sense, what I'm about to say is not complicated. It's kind of misleadingly simple, but it's difficult too, because what you just said is what you have to do. It's when you talk to people and maybe you're giving them a what to do, or talking about how to accomplish something, whether it's taping the stage or aiming lights, setting levels, whatever these things are. You don't want to give that what or how without also giving a why. Because what you said is what we all sort of know, but we don't talk about it. We take it for granted, right, or the pressure on our time drives it out of the conversation. And so, it's really important to tell somebody, like, look, I need you to do this, but you're not just doing the tedious things on your to-do list. You're enabling somebody to connect more meaningfully with Christ and other people.
Here's why it matters.
Yeah, and there's two things I think that stop us from that. Either we think we're saying something that's unnecessary because we already know that, and we need to say it because it's still not getting said. Or, if you do it right, you sound a little over dramatic because you're saying, the way you push that button for the songs, that's an investment and a contribution to a universal spiritual battle.
Right.
It sounds over the top, but if we did that more, people would feel like, man, I'm pushing the button.
Right.
So, in principle, that's what we're trying to do is say, look, you got to harness the power of purpose, and then it transforms busy work into worthy work.
So should we start with why? Kind of Simon Sinek kind of approach?
Yeah. I don't always say start with it, but I sure say stay close to it. Because
that's good.
It's not always the first word, but it's the final word when it comes to people's motivation and their engagement. So, the idea is never get too far away from it. As a leader, you got to be paying attention to how much of the interaction is about the what and the how, because you got to lever the why into the middle of that. Even if it doesn't seem welcome or seem timely, if you get too far away from that, people are going to lose their mojo. You'll hear me tonight, I'll talk about people as being creatures of conviction. And what I mean by that is God made us to run on a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
So when we don't have a clear sense of purpose, or the purpose seems kind of lame, we don't run very well for very long. And as a leader, you're smart to stay really close to that why. Don't get too far away, whether you start with it, end with it, or do both. Keep it in the mix.
Do you think that's an age thing? So, there's definitely studies out there of millennials and younger generation that you don't just give them the work. They have to have a meaning behind it. Is it an age thing or is it a universal thing? We're all wired for worthy work.
I get that all the time. And I get asked to do talks about generational differences and things. And I would say this, it is absolutely not a generational thing. It is the way humans are built by God. But there are some generational differences. And when I hear somebody that looks a lot like me, with the gray hair, the old, and they're
young and fresh and vibrant. And
thank you.
Is that what you mean?
After I've had my coffee. When somebody like that talks to me about, generational differences, what they're really going to do is complain about somebody younger. And here's what they'll say. They'll say, these kids, they need you to tell them why to do this and why to do that. We weren't like that. We would just do whatever it took, and we were willing to. And, my response to that is there's no difference. Older generations really need the why too, because that's the way humans are. It's just that, and I know this kind of flips the script on the complaining, it's just that people my age were a lot more willing to give up and settle faster than younger people. We just thought, well, you go to work and you don't have the luxury of having a good reason. You just do the work and slog out another day in the salt mines, right? And I think young people aren't willing to do that. They're saying there's got to be more than this. Right. And they're not as content with busy work. So, it's absolutely not a generational difference. We are all made to run on purpose. But when we don't have a purpose, maybe generations respond a little differently.
What's the difference in vision and why? Do those intersect? Is vision forward thinking?
That's a good question. Vision's terribly important, and it is often the why, but I guess I would say two things. Number one, when you paint a vision, you're painting a place that you're going to go. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a compelling why. It's like you see the horizon. If you want to make it a compelling why, you've got to make it a appealing horizon, something that draws people, and something that has the power when we look at it to reframe what we're doing in the present as worthy of it. So often a vision is why, but I don't know if it always is. And secondly, if you have a great vision, that may be part of your why, but you need to develop a repertoire of whys, because some of the most compelling whys are in the nearer ground than that distant horizon. And as a leader, you got to get good at being able to kind of employ all of these. The whole point is letting people look up past what they're doing in the moment and reframe it in the context of something more worthy than the task.
All right, so let me tell you a story that I've told before, but I think it goes along with what you're saying. Cool. So when I was on staff at New Spring Church, they had these opportunities tours. So anybody that was new and wanted to see what was going on in the different ministries to volunteer, a tour host would take them around, like the kids ministry or to the greeting ministry or to production or whatever the case may be. And I wasn't that involved with it at first, but the tour host would come around and I would hear them say to the tour, hey, if you're an introverted person that likes to be here for 7 hours a day, get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, stay for 7 hours, and back in the back room, this is where you need to serve.
What a pitch.
I was like, no. So what I started doing is when I told the tour host, I said, when you come by our area, let me take it over. Just hand it off to me and I'll take it over. So one thing I started doing is I would say, okay, hey, to the group, hey, who in this group accepted Christ from one of our worship experiences? And see if hands would go up. All right, now who in this group is already believers, but you've been extremely encouraged and you're growing in your walk with Christ through one of our worship experiences?
Excellent. Yeah.
And then see if hands go up. That's what we do in this room. God uses our hands to create experiences where life change happens. That's what happens in this room.
You did everything right there, but I'll tag up to it with some of the words we're using just to make sense of it.
Yeah.
I mean, before I even do that, let me just suggest too, that also it's a problem in any environment when you forget whether you're talking to insiders or outsiders. Yeah. If you got a tour in your church of any kind, if you're trying to introduce people to those sorts of things, you got to remember you're talking to outsiders. And those of us that are insiders and kind of used to it, we've got the scars to show for it, we talk differently to each other.
Right.
If I even stretched it too far, I don't think this is too far. Anybody that works in tech, anybody in the back of the house, if you're wearing black and you've got a headset on, if you listen to that conversation, how cynical it can get.
Right.
And we don't really feel that way, but it's just we're talking to each other.
But should we talk differently? Like, can I change the conversation?
Yeah.
Calm to say, hey guys, what's happening in the service right now is why you do what you like. Say it's an invitation.
Brilliant.
This is why we do what we do.
Let's short circuit that. Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Change the conversation to where it's not, oh, there goes the worship leader again. He's
Absolutely.
off script again.
Absolutely. I think we should do that. And I guess where I was going with that initially was that person was kind of talking as if they were talking to the other insiders. That, when we roll our eyes and complain, it would be better if we didn't. But when we do, we're not always saying, this isn't worthy. It's just like, we know what we mean, right?
Right.
But when you're talking to people and trying to sell them on an opportunity, that's not what you want to do.
Right.
You want to do exactly what you did, which is you want to separate what you do from what you're accomplishing. That's sort of like elevating the why above the tasks. Right. So you started with saying the things that are accomplished here. And those are the things that we're excited about. And if you have the opportunity to accomplish something great, that's a compelling why. When people have a big why, they'll give extravagantly of their time and talents and energy and all because it's meaningful. But if you don't have a compelling why, or you just sort of start with the work itself, well, the work eclipses the worth and they're not excited about doing it at all. So what you did there was a perfect case study in transforming what could have looked like busy work and probably did to them into worthy work that made them say, I want to be part of it.
Right. Okay, so last question for you. Give me one practical step that I can take this week to turn busy into worthy.
Well, I guess I'd tell you one, and it's going to sneakily have a second one in it. The first one is look for opportunities, the conversations, interactions with your people, meetings, etc., where the why is missing, and make sure you get it in there. That's the goal. The second thing that's kind of sneaky is, from experience, I know there's going to be times that you realize you have a hard time doing that because you're not sure of the why either, and that means you need to take a little time to get it straight for yourself. Yeah.
Am I going to be looked down upon in a church setting if I continually ask why? Hey, guys, can you refresh me? Why are we doing this? Is that going to be just hush? We're good doing it. How much can I push on that? I guess that was my last question. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I'm just trying to figure out whether I should answer that honestly or not.
Dirty side of ministry or not?
No, I think the unfortunate reality is we're all conditioned to hear why probably incorrectly. I think it's from when, for those of us that have kids, when your kids ask you why, like when I say to my daughter, you clean your room, and she would say to me, why? Is she really inquiring, Father, explain to me the importance? No, she's saying like, who are you to tell me that? Right. And so I say to her, like every parent does, because I told you so, yeah. That might be good for kids, but if we don't retune our ears, and I think probably all of us are guilty of this, when somebody asks why in a context like that, we hear it the same way, and we give like organizational versions of because I told you so. Right. Because you have to, it's your job and stuff. And that's a complete loss. That's elevating busy work. So the truth is, yeah, I think that often happens, but that doesn't mean it's not exactly what we need to do. So I think we need to get more artful about asking it. Yeah. Sometimes it's not just saying, well, why are we doing that? Or tell me again about that. For what it's worth, if anybody ever asked you, tell me again why we need to do this, it's a gut check. This is your best moment as a leader. This is somebody saying, tell me again why it's worth the time, the energy, the relationships I got to leverage, anything to get this done. And boy, step up and preach. This is because they really want to know. Yeah. But find ways to ask that or get why into the conversation that are more artful than just say, like, why do we have to do this again? Yeah. So I'm sorry I don't have a better answer than that. That's the good. Truth is, it'll come across wrong until we start changing the culture.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much for your time, man.
Sure, I love it. I always love seeing you at these things.
Hey guys, I'm here with my friend Van Metschke. Van, introduce yourself. You guys are you're from Vantage Pro, right? Yeah. Tell me what all you do at Vantage Pro.
So I'm the church relations client solutions guy at Vantage Pro. Basically, I'm the guy that just kind of hangs out with the customer and, with churches and tech directors, executive pastors, and gets to see if we're the right fit. We're a audio, video, lighting, acoustics, integration firm. Yeah. We primarily help churches with either a new project, like they're building a building and they need AVL, or they're retrofitting a building, or they're upgrading older systems in churches. Primarily, we do other stuff. We do nonprofits and things like that too as well. But our primary focus is house worship.
Gotcha.
But whatever we do, even if it's something not in house of worship, we do everything from a kingdom perspective, and so our whole team was, in church, part of church.
You guys have been on church staff, tech leaders behind the booth, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was either a head of audio or a technical director for 20 years on full-time church staff, and our whole team has probably 100 years of full-time ministry experience, behind us. So
So when you're meeting with the church, talking to them about a new install, before they get into what gear am I going to need, what equipment am I going to need, give me maybe some why. Like, maybe some questions that you ask them. Okay, what are you trying to accomplish? Give me that. Walk that out for me.
Yeah. So we have a kind of a really cool way that we approach design build. When you're doing a big project, you really have to do a design. You just can't go in and just kind of throw stuff up, So we are really intent on making sure we understand what is happening in that church, not just in the building, not just in the tech booth, but what the church is doing. We really believe that churches are world changers, and we want to help them do that through technology. We never think that technology is the end. It's the vehicle that you drive in to get there. Right. And so for us, we are super concerned we have a process called foresight, because it's better to have foresight than hindsight, right? So it sounds kind of cheesy, but it's really true. And so we have a process that we go through with churches where we ask them a ton of questions. We spend a lot of time with them. We have a 3-day kickoff where we spend a ton of time with them. And we talk about everything from what they do, how they're trying to reach the community in the world, what their passions are, what the passions of the leadership is. In those meetings, we get everybody in, from the senior pastor all the way down to the tech people and the musicians and all that. And we really get a feel for who they are, what they're doing, and what drives them as they're trying to build the kingdom. And so we ask a ton of questions about, well, we ask all the standard questions about, well, what is this room being used for, obviously, and what are you trying to do? How are you doing it? Who's using it? What their skill levels are, all those things. But we also really want to know, well, what do you want to do with the room? Where do you see it in 5 years? What kind of services do you do? Do you do Pentecostal services? Do you do very liturgical services? Do you do rock services? Do you do smooth jazz services? I mean, no one does.
Smooth jazz would be pretty sweet.
That'd be awesome. I'd like to actually see a church that did that. But you know what I'm saying, though. So we ask all those questions, but we are also incredibly focused on how they're doing ministry too, because all of us have been in, who are on our team, have been in church, served in church, been on church staffs. And so, we know that the technology needs stem from the ministry that they're doing. Yeah. It's not just, I need a mic, I need to turn it on. Right. There's all kinds of stuff that stems from that. So we have a good process that really brings out a lot of questions and asks a lot of questions that they would never ask themselves. Right. So I think that's one of the things that makes us unique is, like I said, that we have, a lot of years of ministry experience. Like I said, myself, Mike Sessler, who's our design engineer, Duke DeYoung, who's one of our owners. We were all technical directors, sound engineers, concert promoters. We spent many, many years doing that. So we get it. We understand what it's like to be in the tech booth, be in the moment when things fail, when things don't work right, when things weren't designed correctly. Yeah. So we try to navigate all that and mitigate all the problems before we design it and install it.
What are the differences between a house of worship install and a nonprofit or another? Is there any major differences philosophically or anything like that?
I don't know philosophically. Obviously, the destination of hopefully all things is to communicate your message, whatever that is. But for us, obviously, there's the Jesus component for a church and some nonprofits. But I think more importantly for us is that we try to take each individual project and see it on its own merits. Mm-hmm. We don't assume that a church is X, Y, Z. That's one of the reasons we do the process we do, right, is so we can learn what their X, Y, and Z is. And then we customize a system to help their needs. We definitely are not a cookie cutter. We're more of a boutique kind of a company.
Very custom, relational.
And we're there also because we've spent so many years doing this. We also are a company that helps them with training, with helping their volunteers. All of us have a passion for the volunteer team, and we help get their volunteers up to speed on the gear, on what to do, and really understand it so that when they hit that first service, they're confident, and they're not the learning curve. We try to keep the learning curve as flat as possible.
Tell me what that looks like. Obviously you guys probably come in and do a few training sessions, right, but what's the process of you doing that and passing it off to the leader to make sure that they understand so that they can in turn do additional trainings in the future with their team? What does that look like?
Well, I think, again, it's customizable to every situation. One of the things that's, like I said, it's maybe a little bit of repetitive of what I said, but it's very true for us, is we try to build systems and create scenarios that are going to work for what the church, where the church is at. Some churches that we do, they have a full-time tech staff. So how we're going to treat that church is going to be very different than how we're going to treat a church that are all volunteers and has a technical director that actually just does it out of the love of their heart. We're going to treat that scenario very differently. So we try to customize each install, each thing we do to what the church is doing. And that's one of the reasons that we do our foresight process. So we find all those things out. We kind of know how that is. Some churches require very little training. Some churches require a lot of training because this is the first time they've had a video switcher or the first time they've actually had a digital console, audio console. Maybe the first time they've had lights that they control not from the wall, And so, yes, there's going to be more training, and some of that is baked into the system, and some of it's going to be baked in with value added plus, you know what I mean? Where some churches say, we want to pay a little bit extra to have you maybe come in for 3 weeks after and basically train us, kind of be the tech director for a couple of weeks or a month or whatever. So we tailor it to whatever the church asks us to do.
Why is it important to have a good AVL install or budget to spend the money to make Sunday happen? Why does all of it matter?
Well, I think that, in church we talk about stewardship, right? That's like it's an overused word almost. And, but stewardship is not cheap. A lot of people they think it's, I just need to get the best price. But all of us who've been in church for any length of time and worked on projects know that that's not necessarily true. The cheapest thing usually doesn't last the longest, and you're going to be doing it over. And if you do it over and over again, is that really good stewardship? Because you're doing it over and over. We feel that good stewardship is being efficient and effective with the budgets you have. And getting the most out of the budgets you have, not by being cheap, but by being strategic. And so the only way to be strategic is to tap people smarter than you are at a particular thing. Not to say that the churches aren't smart. It's just to say, we do this all the time. It's just like what you guys do. You do it all the time. So you're going to be better at it than the people that are hiring you. So this is what we do. And we can stay focused on this. Because I know, I was on many church staffs, and one of the churches that I was on staff was a giant church. It was 10,000 church, 10,000 people in attendance, and we hired integrators to do our big projects. And people would ask all the time, "Well, you have a team that can do this?" I said, "Yeah, but we have to do church." We have I remember that we had 20 events a week that our team had to pull off. And so we didn't have time or the mind power to do it. So we would work with smart, good integrators that understood what we were doing and accomplish it a lot faster because they could stay focused on the task. That's what we try to do. We say, look, we're not going to tell you how to preach your message. We're not going to tell you how to do kids ministry. We're going to be focused on your AV integration. And that's what we're going to do for you.
I think of the same thing with us in that, we serve churches across the gamut that in different sizes, even very large churches who have a full creative team. Well, why? Because if they can focus on building their volunteer team, pastoring their people, telling the stories that only they can tell in their church, and outsource a sermon bumper or other things, then it can keep them focused on what they need to do there locally. Yeah. I think you guys are the same way in that.
Absolutely.
So if I were to need to get in touch with you guys, if I'm a church needing your services, tell me how I can find you guys.
Well, I think the best way is just to go to our website, which is vantageproav.com. And if you want to email me, you can just be at van@vantageproav.com. It's kind of nice, yeah. I jokingly said that's one of the reasons I came to the company is because they had they had my name in their name. But just go to vantageproav.com and you can check out who we are, get a hold of us through the website, and I will probably be the one giving you a call because that's kind of my job there. So that's the easiest way. We're on social media. You can find us all over the place, but the website's really the best way of getting in contact with us.
That's awesome, man. We'll wrap us up with this. Why, again, and maybe it's the same question, why should I care about good equipment? You mentioned stewardship. But as far as making Sunday happen, why is it good that our equipment is there and in place and runs well? Maybe we can talk about distractions. Why is it good that I should spend the money and that Sunday runs how does that affect life change? You understand what I'm getting at?
Absolutely. I mean, I was like I said, I was a head audio engineer, technical director for 20 years at churches. And I will tell you that our job in technical ministry is to allow the people on the stage to convey the message. And the second thing is to keep that distraction free, so that people in the congregation, in the audience, aren't thinking about, oh, that light's flickering, or what's crackling in the sound system, or why does that video have noise lines in it, or whatever the distraction is. Our job is to keep it completely distraction free as much as possible, because in our society, in our society today, there's so much distraction. I mean, things are just coming at us. I think somebody once said that we consume more information. More information is coming at us in one day as came into somebody's life in a whole year in 1900 or something like that. So, we're just being bombarded with distraction nonstop. And so our job really is to have things work. I remember one of the things that I loved about having a good integrator when I was a tech director is that I would just come in and hit that button, all the systems came on, and I got to do ministry and I got to do my job. Right. And I didn't have to worry about, well, is that amp going to come on, or what's happening with this, or why is the projector not working, or whatever. If you have somebody that's thinking about the systems, that's designing them out so they make sense, so that you have drawings at the end of the project where you can go, okay, this line is 102 in this rack here, and then I go up into the video room and it's 102 here. When I do have to fix things, all of those things matter when you're in a mission critical situation. Yeah. So you want to keep things distraction free. You don't want things to break. Things are going to break. We all know that. Gear is going to break. It can be the most expensive or the cheapest. But if it's designed well and it works for what you're doing, and you can use it every week in a way that gets maximum use out of it, that's going to keep you from worrying about it. Because the bottom line is, you want it to be, as a tech person, you want to be able to do your craft that you're being called to do. You don't want to be thinking about why the gear's not doing what you need it to do every single time. And that's why it's important to make good decisions, and you need to talk to smarter people than you to make good decisions. I think all of us do that. Even all of us in this industry, I'm constantly calling people smarter than me. Yeah. My dad always used to say the key to life is, having your contacts with a bunch of smarter people than you that are willing to take your phone call. You know what I mean? And that's a big deal. So we want to be that for churches. So that they can get the answers they need to be able to do ministry they want to do.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time, man. Really
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
The show notes for this episode are available now at makingsundayhappen.com.
Hey guys, thanks for checking us out this week. Next week on the podcast, again, I'll welcome Grant Norsworthy from New Zealand. I'll be talking with Grant about how to create epic virtual choir videos for your church or your ministry. That's next week. And then in 2 weeks on the show, I'll welcome Brad Zimmerman from Watermark Church in Grand Haven, Michigan. We'll do a 2-part series with Brad on mastering your live stream. Brad was here at FILO, so we hung out a little bit here. You might know Brad as the face of ProPresenter tutorials. If you've ever watched any ProPresenter tutorials tutorials on YouTube or whatever. He's worked with ProPresenter to do those. So we'll talk to Brad about mastering your live stream, and we'll also talk through ways that you can take your live stream to a 2.0 level. So you might have been doing live stream, maybe a camera in the back of the room, or maybe streaming from your phone to Facebook very simply. We're going to talk through how to take that to the next level. Okay, so now's the time. We're a year past when COVID hit. Now's the time to kind of move past and go to 2.0 and take your live stream from maybe a live stream to a full online experience, or kind of move down the path to the next level on your stream. Okay, so we'll be talking with Brad about that. Be sure to check out our archive podcasts at makingsundayhappen.com. Full library, over 300 episodes now of our podcast. So all that is completely free at makingsundayhappen.com. And thank you guys so much for checking us out. I hope you've enjoyed these interviews from FILO 2021 in Chicago. And go out there and create some incredible worship experiences this weekend. I'll catch you next week.
Making Sunday Happen is a production of the ministry of 1230 Media. For show notes, archive episodes, and more free resources for your church, visit makingsundayhappen.com.